Stories. The art of storytelling. Stories aren't just for kids. They're the Easter bunny of incredible and beautiful ideas. It's like this little Easter bunny that hops along and delivers a message, but it packs a wonderful, sweet, delicious punch at the end.
Voices of Victory podcast show. Voices of Victory podcast show.
It is now time for Voices of Victory podcast show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mario D. Leone.
Hello and welcome to Voices of Victory podcast. I am Mario D. Leone. This is the podcast where we dissect all things leadership and, of course, self-esteem based, along with vision. How to understand vision. That being said, let's have fun. The big question is, what makes words in a story actually stick? How do we build narratives that actually matter, and why the art of storytelling can win hearts, minds, and even battles. Welcome aboard, because I am your storyteller on this wonderful magic carpet ride, who learned that the sharpest weapon isn't a sword, but it's actually a sentence. Now, stories are there to persuade. They are not there to manipulate. Please don't get it twisted. There's people who confuse persuasion with manipulation. They really confuse it too. These are the people that need to be offended. It's like, I need to be offended. And they're just going to throw that down. They either need to be offended or they need to be misunderstood. And they need to be misunderstood for the reasoning that they want to argue like a dry polemic. Understand something. Persuasion isn't magic. It's a science. But it's not the dry, boring kind. It's not the stand in a lab coat and measure chemicals kind of science. It's the kind that runs off of emotions, quirks, and of course, unique human contradictions. Now, let's face it, human beings enjoy an amazing story. If you give them just nothing but facts, they're going to start to yawn. It'll start to get dull, maybe even scroll on their phone. You wrap that fact in a story about a dog, a kid, and a random celebrity, and suddenly everybody's engaged. You could tell someone the sky is blue, but until you tell them a story about a coworker who felt the sky by the sound of a bird's wings, and now suddenly you got their attention. It's interesting, right? Very. Let's talk about the three major hooks of storytelling. There are three parts of the human brain, and it all connects to it. The first one is emotion. People don't buy what you say. They buy how you make them feel, first of all. And every great story has that moment. That one that makes your stomach flip like a bad carnival ride. That's emotion. You need it, and guess what? Without it, your story is just a bunch of boring facts wearing a cheap disguise. Just imagine pitching a fundraiser to save bees. You could give numbers. 50% of all bees are dying, but numbers don't sting. Now tell them about a little kid who planted flowers for his mom, only to discover that no bees were actually left to pollinate them. And boom, you hit them with the feels. And that's the sting. That's the sting that says relatability. It's all about relatability. If you want someone to follow your story, you have to speak their language. No one cares about the hero who's perfect, invincible, and flawless, and they just got back from slaying the dragon. No one cares about that. They care about the hero who tripped on the way to the dragon, broke the sword, had to find a new one, and most of all, had to talk their way out of becoming dragon toast. So flaws are magic sauce because we're human beings and everybody is flawed. Anybody who tells you they're not, well, guess what? They're hiding something. Flaws are magic. What's the big twist here? Stories are like jokes. They need a punchline. I use the rule of three. You can tell a story so quickly just off of a single person, just a person walking down the street. Person walks down the street, sees a tree, decides to climb up at it. People throw rocks at him, and then he climbs back down. That story just happened in 3 parts. 3 parts. Even a bad joke has 3 parts. Now, you might be wondering, like, who is this guy? Who is this guy on Voices of Victory that actually talks about storytelling? Well, yeah, I went to film school. I studied film as it relates to story, and that's where it gets fun. And you know what? It can be used wisely. That's the thing with storytelling nowadays, is it can be used very wisely. Now, it's important because even that bad joke that has 3 parts still has a punchline. So stick around, because the twist is like, oh wow, that just happened? Yeah, that actually just happened. That's the twist. It's the part where you lead them off the edge of a cliff and then whisper, trust me, everything's going to be okay. And before they get thrown off that cliff in the story, metaphorically, of course, they have an epiphany. So why persuasion actually needs humor? Well, if we look at humor, it's literally the lubricant for hard truths. You ever notice how people will listen to the most brutal, uncomfortable facts if you actually make them laugh first? It's like sneaking the broccoli into a brownie, quietly. Humor really can help us understand the deeper essence of things in a fun way. It says, hey, I'm on your side. Let's laugh about this absurdity of life before I hit you with the truth. And when they laugh, they're already nodding, yes, I understand. I get it. And keep in mind, I always tell this to people all the time, humor is like lobster. It's an acquired taste. I don't expect everyone to like my humor. And I'm going to be real about that for a second. If you don't like my humor, all I can say is I'm sorry, find another channel. That's it. I'm not for everybody. I don't go out with the concept or idea that I'm out to please every single human being. It doesn't work because there has to be a law of difference. There is a level of difference. I aim for a mass appeal. If I can get 85 to 90% of the people enjoying my podcast, then I think that's what's important. I want to be entertaining and I want to be educational. And those are my values. And I want to make sure that when it comes to psychology, that I really back it with the hard, true psychological understanding. So please keep that in mind. I'm not here to give anybody a bad day or completely admonish my own responsibility in any way. I'm here to deliver, educate, and entertain. So please, humor is my connection. It's how I let people know that I'm human, just like them. People are just like me. So when I make someone laugh, I want to aim to create that level of trust with them. Because when people actually understand where I'm coming from, they want to understand what it is I want to say. And that goes for you as well. If you're telling a story, having that humor is really valuable. It's like a handshake before the hug. It really is. It's not all sunshine and rainbows in life, but it is connecting emotionally to the brain. That's important for you. If you're telling a story, connect to that level of emotion. Then you can actually move towards the facts. Then you can move to a call to action. So I've talked about this before on the show. There are 3 parts of the brain. We have the emotional, we have the logical, and then finally we have the call to action. When you connect to people with a story, emotional first, facts second, and then finally the call to action. In leadership, when you are telling a story, if you're hung up on the facts, or if you come out with the facts first, what will probably happen is you'll get the people that are interested in the facts and everybody else tunes out. So the logical types will all engage, but everybody else will start to slowly go to sleep like you passed out a box of sedatives. So let's please understand that. So tell the story, get the emotions going first. Then you can go into the facts. Don't stay there too long. make sure it's summarized, make sure it's clear, make sure it's concise, and then move into the call to action. Go straight to the call to action right from there. All right? So understand I'm using humor, but you have to understand persuasion is about having positive intent, positive intention. It's not about being manipulative. That's not what we're trying to do. If you're trying to move a group for a greater good, you have to have their best interests in mind as much as possible. That being said, let's talk about just persuasive storytelling. Because guess what? It's more than just getting people to just quote unquote listen. It's about getting them to care. And you know what? In caring, that's the first step to action. So tell the story that sticks, the one that punches and hugs at the same time. Because in the end, the best storytellers, they don't just tell you what they think. They help you connect and understand what you feel, like you understood the whole idea all along. And that's why it's really important. So there you have it. Wanted to break it down for this particular episode and make a nice, straight, understanding one. So connect to emotion, then the logic, the facts, and then finally the call to action. In that order. And you can play around with that. You can work it into your PowerPoints. But there is such a thing as death by PowerPoint. All right? It's very easy to do. Death by PowerPoint. So if you are giving a speech, and I've done this personally myself, if you are giving a speech and it happens to be one where you memorize the whole thing, one of the things you can do is called a visual trigger. See, certain images will actually trigger us, and not in a negative way either. They can be used as a positive trigger, or now what's called a glimmer. They call it a glimmer now. So what would you do? Well, you could literally create a PowerPoint with three images. Image number 1, image number 2, image number 3. And when you rehearse your speech, you can literally look at the first image, and that first image will prompt you to that emotional aspect. The second image will prompt you to those logical facts that you've memorized. And the third image will prompt you and prompt them to a call to action. And you don't have to have anything written on the screen. It's just there for a visual effect for you and for them that is somehow connects to the image. Those pictures, those slides, connect to a visual representation. And all you're really doing, which you're having fun with, is the first one is the emotions. The second one is the logical facts that you bring out. And the last one is the call to action. If you were to pitch, if you're a nonprofit, if you're listening to this and you happen to be like a nonprofit and you have to go pitch people, do you really think you're going to win on facts alone? I want to be real. I want to be very kind and gentle in saying that. Do you really think that your facts alone will sell? No, absolutely not. That will basically be like a plane losing altitude fast. Start off with emotion. Start off with emotion. Express what the vision and goal is of the organization on an emotional level. What you're trying to achieve emotionally. Then you can go into the facts. And then you can go into the call to action. And this works. It works off of triune brain theory. It works. That's the beauty of it. And there are ways to work with this. But that's pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you on the next show.